Welcome to You Had Me at Healthy, a podcast where whole foods meet full hearts. We're Natalie and Jonathan Paul, bringing you real talk on healthy living, family, and life in the Midwest. Let's dive in. Welcome to our couch in our backyard. We're excited to launch our very first podcast. We had some technical difficulties this afternoon. So, now that I'm 40, I think I don't know how to use my iPhone and technology, but we figured it out. We're making it work. But our name of our podcast is You Had Me at Healthy. We love movies.
One of my favorite movies being Jerry Maguire, You Had Me at Hello. And when we were brainstorming podcast ideas, it popped into my head and You Had Me at Healthy. Part of the journey we're going to discuss today is how Natalie was the inspiration for our entire family to get healthy. She kind of slowly presented it to us and kind of nudged us in the right direction. And eventually we got there and we're in a much healthier space now. So that's kind of the basis of the podcast. Natalie, do you want to tell us about these great juices in front of us?
Oh, yes. So we've got a great green juice, which cheers.
I don't know what's in it yet, but she's going to tell us.
We have bok choy, which is my secret ingredient. And I always put bok choy because it is one of the highest nutrient dense foods.
Get a note to the bok choy.
It is a superfood and definitely one of the best foods you can eat, but it has a pretty mild flavor. So if you add it, you're getting all the benefits, but without tasting too much bok choy. So I add bok choy, celery, green pear, which is a twist because I usually use green apples. So I used
green pear. That's a new one. I've never tried this. I hope I like it, but we'll give it a shot.
If he spits it out, we know it's no good. And then a lemon. So I have a juice guide, a free juice guide, which has 7 days of recipes plus a bunch of recipes that the kids really like. All of them are extremely healthy. The kids' juices are a little bit more tropical and fruity, where the adult juices are usually more vegetable-based. But this one still tastes so refreshing.
I'll be the judge of that. We'll see.
Okay.
That's good. I like it. I think the kids would like it too. I like my juices in the morning. Gets me off to a good start. So when I'm fortunate enough when Natalie makes the juices for us, I've tried to make the juices before. It's a bit messier, but they certainly taste good. So Natalie, I kind of wanted you to kind of start the story because you were the inspiration for it. How did we get to where we are now? You had me at healthy. We're in a healthy lifestyle. Our kids are adapting to what we're doing as well. Can you bring us through the journey and kind of where we started?
Sure. Well, it was actually, I was thinking about this last night. It started back when we were doing our Northwestern coaching course.
Shout out to Northwestern. We're Michigan alums, but we also like Northwestern.
Yes. And Jonathan and I decided to do Northwestern coaching course at the same time, which was interesting because we ended up being in the same coaching circle.
But we couldn't coach each other. That was one of the rules.
So it was very interesting. But during that time, I was being coached by an executive coach, and I was building my coaching practice and focused on career and working with leaders and executives, having come from Google and LinkedIn. And I was just telling her kind of what was holding me back, and she was coaching me. And essentially, it came down to the fact that I wasn't feeling as confident as I wanted to feel when I was on coaching calls and when I was trying to record social media videos, and that I felt like not as healthy or as comfortable in my own body. And that was totally unexpected to come out of an executive coaching call. But essentially, the next day I decided to do something about it. I went to our little lovely library in Saline.
Shout out Saline Public Library.
One of my favorite places to go. And I was just kind of like browsing the aisles and was in the health section. And I found this book, and it had like a bright cover. I think it's orange. I believe it's got orange.
I feel like we should have the book with us, but we don't. We'll definitely link to it.
We will show you the book in the future. and it's called Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Furman. And it was kind of like, I don't even think it was it wasn't straight, it was like out. So that's why I saw it. And I was like, oh, wow. Like I read the back, like, this sounds good. It didn't sound gimmicky. It sounded really science-based. And I didn't give it too much thought, but I was like, I checked it out. And then I started reading it and I could not stop reading it. So I think I read the whole book in like 2 days. And I was like, like, everything was focused on eating the best for longevity, whole foods, plant-based, very specific way of eating. And it seemed very different than what we were doing, but I was excited to try something new. And so I totally committed to myself that I wanted to do this. And because I had tried everything else in the past, so I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? And trying something new. So I finished the book. I specifically remember being in bed and like, we got our lamps on. We usually have our book. Like we're sitting in bed reading, and I'm like,
I might have had sports on. She might have been reading, but debatable if I was reading or not.
And I just was like, I actually had to strategically think about how am I going to present this to Jonathan, because I already knew I was going all in. But I was like, he's never going to give up like what I like to call a meat salad and protein shakes, which is what he lived on.
Let me tell you a bit about the meat salad. So a meat salad is essentially you go to a place to make your own salad, and it consists of like chicken, feta, and anything but vegetables. And I used to say, well, if I add the vegetables, it's going to add more calories. And that was so naive back then. I stuck with the meats, and I've joked all along that my diet or my way of eating was always like grilled chicken and Diet Coke. That was my kind of diet food. And going through this journey, I learned that that's not the way to optimize your nutrition. That's not the way to live. So I came along on this journey too. But Natalie, let's go back to the point where you were ready to do your self journey and you said, okay, how do I get my family on board?
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, he's eating meat salads. There's no way he's going to like start adding vegetables to his salads. I'd be like, you want me to make you a salad? And he's like, well, just skip the vegetables, just put the meat in and honey mustard. But anyways, I was like, oh, so my approach was like very nonchalant. Like if I tell him he should do this, he's never going to do it. So I was like, I just read this book. It's pretty good. Like, you want to read it? And you're like, oh, so you like picked it up and looking at it and you're like, okay. And then you started reading, and I feel like it took you like a day and you read the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember going through it. And then when you're really into something, you want to just read. And I think I probably read it in 1 or 2 days, and it made a lot of sense. It's things I've thought about in the past. I've always tried juices, like 2 or 3 days for juices. You feel good, and then you kind of stop doing it. But reading the book, reading the science, really understanding what the benefits were, it was something that I was willing to try. Natalie, of course, was the one that really pioneered it because she's a great chef making great foods. And if you're going to go in a certain direction, the food needs to taste good. And we love the food. So once I was on board to trying it, and then we, of course, had to get the kids on board. So Natalie, how did we approach it with our kids?
Yeah, so it was interesting because we were like, okay, we're not going to be eating like all these cheeses and meats, and we went dairy free, totally changing our lifestyle and really eating nutrient dense vegetables. And that's really like was our focus most of all, is less about getting rid of things, but more about adding in all the good things. And I think that was really like the mindset when we got started. But what we started doing is first I did a milk challenge with the kids, and I went to the store and I bought every type of dairy-free milk. And I mean, there's quite a few. We didn't buy the whole store, but I think I bought at least 5 or 6 varieties of like unsweetened and sweetened, because I also kind of thought they wouldn't drink anything unsweetened. And we tried them all, and it was like a blind taste test to see which one won. And they picked unsweetened soy milk. And actually, that is the best for you. So we were pretty happy about that. So we first started with the dairy. And then along the way, like we're really giving them lots of vegetables, always offering fruits and vegetables with every meal. I was making them a little bit of chicken at first because it was like, we didn't know how it would go.
Baby steps, right? Because with kids, you can't overturn their entire diet, and they're going to be at school, they're going to be with friends. So the little changes that we implemented, the big thing being the different milk, just over time making those adjustments, and it was
Yeah.
for them baby steps because at the time they're 8 and 10 years old now, so a couple years younger than they are now, and they were really on board. They enjoyed doing it with us. They saw mom and dad making really good changes, and it was a fun thing for them. So we got them on board, and uh, the food, I mean, I think they prefer the food now. Sometimes they
Yeah.
look at certain foods and they're just like, how did I even eat that? Or they'll make a little joke about it. They're really on board with these great healthy foods because they taste really good, right? If your food tastes good and it's good for you, you can't get better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree. And I think sometimes moms are afraid to like offer things to their kids that they might not like, but I realize that if I just keep offering and exposing them to like a large variety of fruits and vegetables, they find the ones they really love, and they're just like they become like little explorers. And it was like a fun game for them. Like they like going grocery shopping with me. They love, like, I let them pick out like exotic things or things they didn't know what they were. And so it's part of making it just a fun thing and a healthy thing, and teaching them, actually, even though they're young, about like why blueberries are good for you. And they just feel so empowered, and I think so smart, that it's a great sense of pride for them. So
Yeah, our daughter's Rosie, she's totally into it. She's like, she made a list of 100 superfoods and she was so proud of herself. She was just asking, Mommy, Daddy, is this a superfood? Is this a superfood? She was really into it. Our son, Jack, he's also really into it. But our daughter was kind of the one that kind of led it. And then seeing his little sister do it, he got more on board and now he loves it too. And from a dad perspective, a lot of my research is kind of learning about how dads and their kids bond. And a lot of it's over food, and it's about over like big steaks or chicken wings or big pizzas. And that becomes part of the culture of being a dad with their kids. And I'm guilty of that with Jack. Like, it'd always be like, oh, there's a big game on, let's get some wings, or we're going to go out to dinner. It's a special occasion. We're going to get the filet, the biggest steak they have.
mhm.
And it's just part of the culture. And you grow up that way thinking that that's the way to act, and to that your son wants to do that, he should be doing that. But you realize over time that the foods that you're putting in your body that are going to fuel you and set up your future, you want to be more mindful about those. So Natalie, I want you to kind of go through, and where we know what it is now, but for our audience that's learning about it, what exactly is a whole food plant-based diet? Can you give the specifics of what that
Yeah.
means?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of like what it sounds like. So we're eating, most of our food, everything is whole foods, plant-based. I would say 95%. There might be sometimes when we have animal products, but that's like rare, and usually reserved for like, a special dinner, or like, and in that example I would give you is like shrimp once a week, or like if we have Asian and we have like a shrimp, a little bit of shrimp, or maybe there's an egg in a really healthy muffin recipe that I make just to help it give it the right, substance, things like that. So it's very minimal. But the majority of our diet is really focused on nutrient dense foods, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts and seeds, which are really important. And actually, I didn't know how important nuts and seeds are just for your overall health and longevity, as well as avocados. So we have like a really like balanced diet of protein, fat, lots of fiber, lots of micronutrients because of how much fruits and vegetables we're eating. But the fats and the protein are really important, and especially for our kids, because they're so active in sports and their brains are growing too. So they need those elements.
One of my main concerns is when Natalie presented the book to me and said, okay, we're going to be doing lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains. I was thinking, well, growing up, I had lots of protein shakes, protein bars, grilled chicken. Like, you go to the gym and you hear about the grilled chicken and the steak and all that. And how do you actually get your protein? But looking at all the science, reading about it, educating ourselves, taking courses, we actually learned that there's so much protein in non-animal products where you can actually fulfill your protein requirements a lot safer, a lot easier, and it's kind of a hidden gem when you kind of compare, like, what are some type of foods that are non-animal products you'd say have a lot of protein?
Yeah, and actually, I should have mentioned beans.
Beans, yeah.
Because I didn't even the beans. I forgot the beans, babe. Um, Beans are a huge staple, so I don't know why I forgot about beans, but yes, beans are such a high protein source and they're full of fiber and all of these like micronutrients, and they're so good for your gut health. There's just so many benefits with beans, and the fiber and how it makes your stomach feel full, and the after effects that kind of stay with in your gut the next day. So I think that's one of the big differences is we can still get all the protein we need, but it also has all these other added benefits that eating a steak doesn't, and actually is really hard on your stomach. Like, I always had the worst stomach aches after eating like a burger or steak, and I always like would be up in the middle of the night. Like, it doesn't agree with me. It's very hard to digest. So yeah, protein sources, beans, tofu, edamame, soybeans, which are like the same thing, nuts and seeds. There's lots of vegetables that have high protein, peas.
And I know in your program for women, when you talk about their protein needs, you have a whole kind of section there about protein needs. And I have that too for men, because it's just about kind of learning what the requirements are, what those foods are. We have all these sample meals and packets and a lot of resources on our websites to kind of go through the specifics of it. Protein, I call them positive food, positive eating. And that's kind of the term that I use a lot, that every time I make a decision about what I'm going to eat, I try to decide, is this a positive food for my goals in life, right? Are my goals in life to be super healthy, to be there for my kids as they get older, to be active? Is this food a positive food? And trying to be as 100% as possible. You're not always going to be there, but if you're very mindful of it, like Natalie said, 95% of the time, like occasionally if we're going to go someplace that has really good pizza, we may ask for light cheese, and we decide that animal product at like maybe 5% of our calories is okay, and the science backs that up, that it is okay, or some seafood. But being really mindful of what we're eating, and is it going to fulfill our goals going forward? So Natalie, with the positive eating and with the nutrition that we're discussing here, what are some things that you would advise to drink, right? Because if you can eat food, what are some things that you like to drink in terms of your way of eating and drinking?
Okay, well, I guess in terms of drinking, I'm not like a big, well, I'm not a big drinker if we're talking alcohol. I don't know if we're talking about alcohol, but in general, I would say, I know this is going to be a very boring answer, but I drink a lot of water.
That's what you have to do, water. And sometimes we don't even drink with our dinner. And that used to be really weird. Like, but we learned that you shouldn't really be that thirsty if you're drinking water throughout the day. And it's one of those habits you grow up that you need a drink in one hand and the fork in the other hand, and it kind of goes hand in hand. But a lot of times we don't really even have drinks with our food. But what are some staples that if you do need to drink other than water?
Yeah, and the one thing I would say is when you're eating this way and you're eating so many fruits and vegetables, there's, high water content in fruits and vegetables. And so you feel hydrated from within. Like the food that you eat makes your skin glow and feel hydrated. So of course we drink a lot of water because we exercise, but you get a lot of hydration just from the foods itself. I do like herbal tea. We have a new ritual at night. I make a special herbal teas that we drink while we watch our TV shows and some of our favorite shows. We don't drink Diet Coke anymore. We used to drink a lot of diet soda. And Jonathan used to have giant big gulps of diet soda. And that is completely out of our vocabulary. The kids do not drink any soda. We don't drink, the kids don't drink, what are those called? Sports drinks.
Oh, like Gatorades, Powerades. So those are things that I used to, when my son was playing hockey or baseball, like you go to the concession stand, you're like, hey, drink a Gatorade, you got a big game. And just kind of learning about that water is the best option really at all times, and like the herbal teas. And sometimes, like she said, we'll do guess the tea. She'll say, what type of tea are we having? And
We like a lot of games. We do lots of guessing games.
it's kind of fun. And it's kind of a transition because you get into a frame of mind where at night you have a glass of wine or something, and that's kind of, what you drink together. And we'll get more into the alcohol in future episodes and kind of how to handle that. But yeah, teas have become a big staple for us, just having really good teas, cold teas, hot teas. And we go through a lot of those benefits in our programs and on our websites. So we have our positive eating and our the food that we eat. We have to what we drink. What are some of the challenges we faced out there in our world as we transition from eating in our house the way we want to eat to then going out to the outside world, outside the bubble?
Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing when we first got started, was going out to eat, and also just realizing like how much we ate out and ordered DoorDash before we changed. So a lot of it was me having to do a lot more planning in terms of what are we having for the week to eat and what nights are we eating out, perhaps just because we have to, because of our kids' sports schedules. But I think what we kind of learned and started to gain traction and really knowledge on is like, I can handle any menu now. Like, I feel like, I mean, maybe there's a few places we couldn't eat anything, but most places we can go and we can find something. And it might not be our favorite like meal ever, but some people eat like it's their last meal on earth, and like they dissect the menu like they're so afraid of missing out that they're like, I have to pick the very best meal. And I think we feel so free from that now, where it's like, this isn't your last meal on earth. So just pick something that's going to satisfy you and be healthy. And usually it's like, we always start with a side salad or even a big salad. Like, we'll say, get us 2 salads. And they'll like look at us like, oh, you sure you want like a double salad? And you're like, yeah, we want a double salad, and like hold the cheese, hold the meat, add these extra vegetables. Oh, there's avocados on the menu. Could you put those in, or hummus?
That's the customizing the meals. I call it navigating the menu, right? We go to a place and we may be going for the atmosphere, or there other people want to eat there. And we kind of, okay, what's on the menu that we can make a meal that is positive enough for us to continue our journey. It's not going to always be a perfect meal, but
yeah,
what can we find down there? And usually a base is a salad or a vegetable-based soup, or kind of trying to find what's the best thing. Because our meal later that day may be something that we've pre-planned. That's going to be a really great meal for our goals. But our lunch that day may be something where we just kind of have to get through that and kind of manage the situation as best as possible.
Yeah, and it's funny. I used to think like, worry about being hungry. And we'll talk, this is a whole nother topic, but the topic of toxic hunger and cravings and like feeling like you're going to starve or get shaky if you don't eat enough. And I don't feel like that anymore. So yeah, we fill up on soups and salads. And also a lot of restaurants now do have vegetarian or like vegan entrees that you can adjust. So there's always ways to get creative. And I think that's just like the name of the game, is like being creative and flexible.
And I think the kids have really adapted well. Like when we go out, they look at the menu and they are like proud if they find something that is good for them. That's kind of what they want to eat. And a lot of those old temptations, like I can't even imagine them ordering like fries on the side now. It used to be fries and greasy food. And now
it's like every kid wants chicken fingers and fries. And when we go out with other families, it is the norm, chicken fingers, fries, and like an orange soda or a pop, like a giant soda. And our kids are like, we want a side salad with a little bit of ranch. And then they get their, they sometimes get an Impossible Burger or something like that. And they make it work, and they're happy. Like, they're not deprived. We see them as being lucky and fortunate that we've made this change. So they don't view it as like being punished or being deprived. And actually they feel very positive about what they're doing with their own bodies.
And there's always going to be those external forces if they go into a birthday party, or if they're with their teammates or people that they interact with. They're at school, sometimes school lunches. And we just try to manage the situation as best as possible, kind of empower them to make their own choices. And to, like our son, when he goes to school, the meal may not be the most nutritious meal, but he knows that to like kind of focus on the salads, the fruits, and have a little taste of something that his friends are having. but he knows to make good choices because he wants to make those choices, and he knows what's going to make him feel better throughout the day and kind of fuel him for whatever's happening after school and make him feel good. So we're really proud of our kids. And I know there's some funny stories that we've come across lately. We've been talking about them. We wanted to share some stories. What's the story, Natalie, about you just at the grocery store with the kids? And it was a really funny story. So I'll let you tell.
Oh, well, now I don't know if it's going to be that funny. You're hyping it up to be that funny. Well, we've had a lot of snow days and the kids have been home. So they go with me to the grocery store, and we went to the store, and it's a big grocery store. So there's just like a lot of processed junk food. Most of the aisles in the freezer section, I mean, it's just massive amount of junk food besides, the healthy stuff.
Well, let me just pause you right there. Tell our audience what a processed food is versus a non-processed food or natural food, because I think that's a big key to the way that we eat.
Okay. Well, I feel like there's multiple layers of processed, like ultra processed, just deadly. I don't know what the highest level would be. And then unprocessed. So unprocessed foods would be all of your fresh fruits, vegetables, raw nuts, seeds, anything that hasn't really gone through a factory per se.
I guess give an example. If you were going to pack a snack for Rosie or Jack for school, give me an example of what a processed food would be that maybe in the past that we've given them versus like something we give them now.
Well, processed food, like I would say this is ultra processed, would be a bag of goldfish.
Yeah, I was going to say Lunchable. I thought she was going to say Lunchable.
Or Lunchable is ultra processed.
Goldfish, though, is pretty processed.
Yeah, they both are. So, yeah, a bag of goldfish, a Lunchable, and I don't know, whatever, some kind of juice box maybe. That would be an unhealthy processed lunch or snack. Now, I would, I do make them homemade lunches today. Rosie's very lucky. I made her a homemade banza pasta with tomato sauce and peas and put it in a thermos so it stays hot. And then I
pretty good.
Cut up a plum, grapes, and watermelon.
Shout out to Rosie. Hopefully you're enjoying your meal when you watch this podcast.
Yeah. But I mean, snacks now, I really try to rely on fruits and vegetables cut up with little hummus cups, little guacamole cups, almond butter with not vegetables, but with like apple slices. So things that you can that is fresh item that you can put in, like orange slices, anything like that. Nuts, as long as there's no one with the nut allergy in their class, they love like a trail mix, like a homemade healthy trail mix is like such a good snack. Maybe like a minimally processed or processed snack could be like healthy crackers with hummus. Sometimes we do that, but I try to always have some fruits and vegetables in there, with that. Yeah. And we've eliminated goldfish from our repertoire.
Yeah, sorry, goldfish. No goldfish in the diet. And the same way that we talked about the process for the non-processed snacks, it's the same thing for an adult. If you're going to be like, Natalie, if you're going to be going to Rosie's Irish dance and you know that dinner is going to be a bit later that night and you want to kind of make sure you have a healthy snack, tell our audience what are some of the snacks that you like to bring yourself in your own purse or
That's a good idea. Okay, well, I do actually this is kind of funny. I bring like a big Tupperware of berries, like fresh berries, and I've had people comment before.
How big is the tub?
It's not that big. No, it's not that big, but it's like,
That's a pretty big tub.
Couple berries. Yeah, for me, it's not that big because now we eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, but it's like at least 2 cups of berries. And I put blueberries and strawberries, and people are like, wow, those berries look amazing. So it's pretty much like a berry salad. And then I always bring like an herbal tea with me because I tend to be cold all the time. So I always have a hot tea, and that makes me happy. And the other thing I really love, which I've always loved, is popcorn. I don't make unhealthy popcorn anymore. And, not all like the butter and all like the fake orange stuff on it. But I have an air popper. So I make air popped popcorn and I sprinkle it with nutritional yeast. And there's something called Table Tasty, which isn't salt, but it's like so good and weird.
I could vouch for this. It's good popcorn. It's a good substitute for what we used to eat. Just thinking about like what they give you at the movie theater. This is a lot better, tastes better, and it's better.
Yeah. So the kids like that too. So it kind of makes it feel like a fun snack. But that's something I like to bring.
Well, as Natalie always kind of jokes me, she's like, "What do you want at the grocery store?" And I always say snap peas, right? And snap peas, that's my favorite snack to have. If I'm going to be taking my son to hockey and I need a snack for the car, a bag of snap peas from the grocery store, that and like a jasmine tea, green juice, or that's kind of my go-to. Just something easy to eat and it kind of lasts. And thinking back to my old habits, like those snap peas might have been like pretzels, right? Or like
Oh
wheat
yeah,
thins.
you loved salty the better with the wheat thin,
Right.
which goes with a giant Diet Coke.
Right. My snack of the past, if I'm driving the car, might have been like a Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi and some wheat thins. And now it's snap peas and a jasmine tea or water or a seltzer. So it's just making those habit changes. So it's like the same habit. Like if I'm driving, I want to have something to drink or to kind of snack on, but it's just replacing that with more positive foods and being mindful of that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to avoid our story here in the grocery store. What's the story of the grocery store? Because the audience is there. Yeah.
Not that funny. Okay, well, it was so cute because they were just like on this mission to find the most unhealthy cereal. And everything's like a competition in our house because we're just competitive like people. They love sports and they want to compete and everything. So who can find the most unhealthy? Started with the cereal aisle and then it was the freezer aisle. We found one cereal and the worst was some kind of honeycomb sugar baby or sugar daddy. No, it's just kidding. I think it was sugar bear, but it was like a picture of a bear and it was pretty much just like sugar bear. And you're like, oh my God. So you look at the label and it was like an incredible amount of sugar. So Jack won that game. Then we went down the freezer aisle and Rosie found Fat Boy. It was called Fat Boy ice cream sandwiches. And she was like, oh, okay. So we took a picture of that and that was we had a little chuckle.
These products aren't even trying to hide what's in them, right?
No.
Target audience.
And then there was a pizza cupcake and we're like, oh, okay. You know, that took the cake. So the pizza cupcake, but it was just a fun thing. They love to shop with me. It's those little things that kind of keep them, they're investigating. I thought it was incredibly thoughtful of Jack, our son, who said, you know what I noticed, Mommy? The more unhealthy the cereal, the brighter the box and the more it stands out. And I was like, wow, Jack, that is so smart and just insightful because it's true. The marketing and the attraction for kids and the brightness in the colors, just totally... The more unhealthy it is, the more they're trying to get those kids to be, it's so sad, but like addicted to these sugary cereal. I mean, they have cereals that are mini cookies in a bowl and you just pour the cookies in the bowl and eat them like cereal, like for breakfast. And it's not a breakfast.
And these are foods that lack absolutely no nutritional value, right? And I imagine like kids at the grocery store, the really bright box, that's the one that they reach out for on the cart. And then their parents say, well, if, my son or daughter wants that, I'm just going to stick it in the cart. And then, it's easy for breakfast and then pour some milk on it. And
they're kids, so they're fine. Like they're not overweight yet, right? Like, so like they're fine. And I feel like when we were like, we weren't that bad, but I also fell prey to that in terms of like the kids wanting things and being too afraid to say no or explain why, or too exhausted myself and just kind of like, okay, put it in the cart, even though, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, on my phone, it always pops up these pictures of our kids having big slushies out and just like cinnamon buns. And it's like, we said yes because that's what they wanted. And like you said, yeah, they're kids, they're fine, they don't have health issues. But if they start at that age, that's the way that they're going to grow up. Like at least I grew up, eating that way too. And then as an adult, I was still going to 7-Eleven and getting diet sodas and, just eating all these processed foods like the wheat thins. And I didn't learn growing up, what positive foods were or like a whole food plant-based diet. So setting them up for success now is really important, something that we really value. So Natalie, like I'm so happy that you got us to do this. I was on board, but you made it like really easy for us and we're on this journey now. So I'm really appreciative of it. But I want to tell my story about my observations of the week, because I'm saying when we do this podcast, I want to talk about it. And
I want to hear.
Natalie always jokes I have a bit of Larry David in me. So shout out to Larry David. You're going to be on this podcast soon.
The Brooklyn boy.
Brooklyn boy. And as in Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry's always pointing out things. So one thing, I was at Starbucks and I was getting an oatmeal, and I usually get the blueberries and some nuts, and that's kind of one of my go-tos. And the last time I went to Starbucks and I pulled up and they gave me my bag of extras, it was actually dried blueberries, like it weren't real fresh blueberries that they used to have. And I looked at the nutritional value, and it was like 17 added grams of sugar in these dried fruit blueberries. And I was so disappointed because I was looking forward to the fresh blueberries we have at home. I was like, Starbucks, why would you do this? So that was kind of my observation. I felt like Larry David a bit. Like, I didn't go in and complain about it, but I was like, where's the fresh blueberries? So that was kind of...
It's because you went through the drive-through.
Well,
if you would have been there in person, you would have said, where's the blueberries? And then you would have said, I think I see some blueberries back there. And they would have said, no, sir, no, those are for something else, or we don't serve those anymore. And you say, but I see the blueberries. That would have been the issue.
That probably would have been the episode of Larry David. I always come home and tell Natalie just kind of these little stories about the world around us and how they're not on, our point of view with kind of the whole food plant-based. And it's probably an easy thing for a store to substitute, probably cheaper or whatnot. But one of those things that kind of stood out for me. But I guess let's conclude with one of the changes you've made in your own kind of journey with Starbucks. You said you had a positive story to kind of counteract. Okay, we love Starbucks.
Okay, well,
we're not anti-Starbucks.
We can balance out the Starbucks hate with a good thing. No, I'm not hate, but whatever. Well, the good thing that I learned this week was I like making matcha at home because I like the green tea antioxidants, and there's so much like powerful goodness in green tea especially for like cell repair. So the matcha at Starbucks, they did make a good new improvement, and it is not sweetened anymore. The powder used to be incredibly sweet. So even if you did like an unsweetened milk or like a low sugar milk, it was still so sugary. So I never got it there, but it's unsweetened now. But they ended up adding now 2 pumps or 3 pumps of vanilla. So you have to say no syrup.
Yeah, no. Starbucks loves the pumps. You have to be mindful about that order.
So no syrup, and get almond milk because it is the lowest sugar. I love soy milk, and that's what we eat at home or drink at home. But the soy milk at Starbucks is also sweetened. So we're just waiting for them to get unsweetened soy milk. But otherwise, the almond milk is the lowest of the sugar options. So yeah, you can get matcha now, but you still got to ask for no sugar.
So we love you, Starbucks. We're probably going to get one later. I just wanted to stay on a positive note. So as we conclude this episode, Natalie, just tell the audience kind of what we may have had going forward and, where you can find us.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. We made it work. We figured out our technology. Go team. And you can find my website is Nattie Paul, Nattie Paul.com. We'll put all that in the show notes. I just launched my online coaching program, so it will teach you all about all the nutritional science, plus things around mindset, habits, creating your dream life, all of the things that might be holding you back. So there's a deep aspect of coaching, not just nutrition. I have my juice guide available, so you can learn all of the juice recipes. And we look forward to just continuing the journey, getting the podcast going, and sharing all of the amazing changes we've made in our life that hopefully will inspire you to do the same thing and just enjoy your life even more when you're living healthfully.
And you can find me at mohawkco.com. I have a lot of great information on there, talk a lot about kind of the big food and kind of that journey, navigating what you want to eat, and it's specifically for men and growing up and being dads and just being your best self. So find us online. We look forward to making additional podcasts and kind of sharing our journey. Thank you for listening to us, our first podcast.
Bye. That's a wrap for this episode of You Had Me at Healthy. Remember, whole foods, full hearts, can't lose. Keep fueling your body, loving your family, and living your best life.